Hey everybody, today on the Ferral Life podcast, we're going to be chatting to none other than Matt Bromley, big wave surfer out of Cape Town, South Africa. He's just come back from Jaws and Mavericks. The dude has surfed some epic size waves. Matt, how you doing? Welcome to the show. So what's it like to be back in the land of the peasants?
Ja, it's lekker to be home, eh? It was an extremely stressful and roller coaster of emotions, ups and downs. Just packing that all into like 10 days, 2 weeks. I think 5 days of the trip was pure traveling. It was just so intense. So to be home now for Christmas holidays with the wife and chilling, it's so good.
Awesome, mate. Awesome. Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, that trip looked arduous. I mean, you traveled during one of the sort of toughest times, and Hawaii is not exactly around the corner, you know.
Yeah, no, it's not. And so yeah, I mean, it was so tough making the call whether to go or not. I didn't know if there was going to be there were so many forms and little fine print things that I was talking to lots of different travel agents, and this person would say, oh, you need this, and then someone else would say, oh, you need this, and I was so scared I'd miss something because I was arriving the night before the swell. So if I missed one little thing, I would miss the whole swell and go all the way there for nothing. So
yeah,
I was just thinking the whole time, is there something I'm missing here? And you come up to a customs officer and he's looking for this form. And then luckily I had everything that I needed, but it was a lot of, it was intense.
How many flights was it to Hawaii?
So I had to get a test here in Cape Town, and then which was also a bit of a mission because by the time, sorry, I live with cats. So.
Beautiful little cat.
By the time I booked my flight, it was the weekend, and all the COVID testing centers were closed already, and I was flying out the next day, so I had to get a test that day. And my dad works with a medical with Mediclinic, so he helped me to get an urgent test, and then I flew to Dubai that next evening, then to LA, and then Hawaii don't accept COVID tests from South Africa, so I had to get another COVID test in LA, and then stay the night there. I got my test results the next morning, and then flew out to Maui the next morning. So it was 2.5 days of traveling.
What a trek! But then you got there, and I mean, you must have been fairly jet lagged and fairly fatigued, both not just physically, but emotionally as well. Like psychologically, it was quite taxing. And then you arrive in Jaws. I mean, wow. I mean, how were you feeling? I mean, the surf's thumping. How were you feeling at that point? I mean, amped, but also
the whole trip over was I've never really experienced so much anxiety before, actually. I'm quite a relaxed person, and the whole way, just all the worries, everything. And I think also not traveling for 10 months was really weird, being away from my wife again, and I just got in this comfort zone being at home, and then being on the road, carrying my 2 board bags, running around, and the whole time I knew that I was arriving the night before the swell, so I needed to sleep. I needed to drink lots of water. I needed to stay flexible. I was stretching in the plane and the toilet. I was trying to, keep my body in shape, because when you travel for so long, you just get stiff and you just feel buggered. So the whole time I had that in the back of my mind, and that was also giving me a lot of anxiety, and I couldn't sleep. And I was I knew I needed to get sleep, and I couldn't. And then by the time I arrived there, it was 7:30 at night, and then got my boards ready, and then I was sleeping on a tent on my friend's lawn, but it's 10 kilometers up on the hill above Jaws. It's so beautiful there. But I didn't hardly got any sleep that night. And again, just the anxious thoughts, it's thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to surf. The forecast was looking huge. So that was playing in the back of my mind. And I just didn't feel prepared, and because of my mental state. And then there was also what made it worse was the swell started hitting in the middle of the night, and I could hear the sets exploding at Jaws from my tent, and like it would actually wake me up, and I'd just be like so rattled hearing these huge explosions. Like it sounded so loud and so scary. And then at like 5 in the morning, um, I woke up and I just did like my little morning routine, my Bible reading, my prayer, my stretches, got in the zone. And then I really felt like everything started to click into gear, and I felt like I was ready.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly that. It got you at peace. It got rid of all the travel anxiety. And dude, then you just went out and just charged. And like for us here in South Africa, seeing the feeds come through, just, we were like so pumped and so stoked to see you like taking it on. We knew this trip was tough. You were showing us pictures of the flight and everything. So we were like, wow, what's going to happen when he gets there? And then you just got out there and you did your thing, dude. And like, big up from everyone in the surf community in South Africa. Like, man, like super stoked and super proud, and yeah, well done, Matt. It was awesome to see, man. So like you were like literally like on the grass just up from Jaws. You can hear the waves thumping. You get up in the morning, you paddle out. What were you thinking that moment you jumped into the water with your board?
So I didn't actually even look at the waves because I knew it was big because I could hear it the whole night. So I just jumped straight in my suit, went down the muddy path at Jaws. I got down to the rocks and I just saw these like huge barrels coming through the lineup. I was like, oh my gosh, I know it's definitely on. And then you gotta brave the rock jump before you get into the lineup. So you stand on the top of the rocks, and it's this huge shore break, and it surges like 15 meters up the rocks and then down again. It's so powerful, and it's like these round, slippery boulders. So I've got my 10-foot board, and you're trying to wait for a lull in the sets, but there's so much like of this happening on the inside, you can't really tell what's happening. And then you try to find your gap, you sprint down the rocks, and then so I sprinted down the rocks and I like managed to time it really well, dived on the back of like a surge and got sucked out, made it out okay. And then I paddled into the lineup, and I knew that the kind of morning was going to be the best because the wind always comes up on Maui. It always gets very windy by like late morning. So kind of watched like maybe one set from the channel. And it's just, it's so crazy. When you're out there, it's like in a dream world. The waves are so big and it's so powerful and loud. And it's such an iconic place as well, Jaws. Like I used to watch videos like Big Wednesday of Laird Hamilton and those guys back in the day, and they would describe their lineups with the palm trees and stuff on the hill. And now it's so cool that I get to do that and make the same lineups. And I went and I caught a quick wave right off the bat just to try to get my feet in the wax, and it felt terrible. Like I felt like all the jet lag came out in that one wave because my legs were straight, my feet were together, they were slipping on the wax, and it felt very uneasy. But then after I had that wave, then I started to click into gear, and then I started to get some good ones. So yeah.
Awesome. And was Twigs out in the water with you there as well, eh?
No, Twiggy, he went to Oahu. Something happened with Maui that he couldn't get there in time or something. So he went to an outer reef on Maui. And I was the only guy, as far as I know, in the lineup at Jaws that had actually traveled to get to the waves. Sorry.
No problem.
So there were guys who had traveled from the States, from the mainland, but all the guys from Europe and Australia, they were kind of, some of them, I guess, couldn't leave really, and other people were just like, it's just too weird traveling in COVID. So it was quite cool being like one of the only foreigners in the lineup, and everyone was like, "Well, you just came here all the way from South Africa in this time."
And the sort of vibe in the lineup, fairly welcoming.
Yeah, at Jaws, it's all the waves are so big, like everyone's kind of looking out for everyone, and the waves are so big and scary that like there's not really a lot of ego in the water and people snaking each other. It's like
Mutual
I
respect.
mean, the sets that were coming through were like, I don't know, 50 foot or bigger. Like they were huge waves. So when a set comes through, everyone's kind of, most of us were just paddling straight over the waves, and no one was really going on the big ones. And guys are kind of like, oh, if you want this one, you can have it. And it's so cool because you're surfing with like Kyle Lenny and Billy Kemper, Nathan Florence, Ian Walsh, like all the absolute legends, you know.
Yeah.
And but there's still lots of days out there, Jaws, where the way the sets are still too big and scary for people to paddle into. But yeah, everyone was super awesome. It was great to chat and catch up with those guys, and yeah, and to really like try to push the limits next to all those international big wave surfers.
And paddling into that bomb, the biggest wave that you took off on that day. I mean, it happens in a flash, but it's one that you go to sleep at night. You can see it in your dreams. You can see it in your mind. I'm sure, like you relive it over and over again, right?
Yeah, no, I do, I do. Yeah, I only caught, I think I caught four waves that whole day, but after the third wave I had was just everything. It made everything just so worth it. Like it was a really big one. I was sitting quite far out. My strategy was to kind of sit a little bit further out than everyone so that I don't get caught inside, but rather try catch the biggest waves that come through instead of getting them crashing on your head. And I sat like way up at the top. So there's like at the top of the point is the North Peak, and then further towards the channel is the West Peak. So the ideal wave you want at Jaws is one that comes in off the North Peak way at the top and then reels all the way through the West Bowl, and barrels through the West Bowl all the way to the channel. So I was sitting quite far up at the North Peak, and then this like, yeah, when the waves come in at Jaws, it's crazy. It's not just like a peak or something. It's like this huge wall of water that stretches 200 meters across. And then as it comes in, it starts to feel the reef, and then it starts to bend in on itself, and all the energy starts to converge. And this thing was kind of doing that like really nicely. And I put myself like underneath the lip, and I just put my head down, and I was just like, I just think I'm going on this wave. It just looked really good. And it gave me a really nice entry, like this beautiful, steep, smooth drop. And I just I have this clear image of, because when you ride a wave, everything's like happening so fast, like the kind of snippets you remember in your mind. And I have this clear image of when I bottom turned, the wall just stood up like blue and vertical next to me, and it was just the most incredible feeling. And it was all sucking off the reef, like this huge area of ocean just sucking off the reef, and pulled up into the hook of the wave and like rode over this like foam section right in the hook, and then it like shot me out into the channel, into the flat water, and I just rode out, and I just felt like all the relief and all the nerves and everything just was like, it was just all like fulfilled in that one wave. It was really, really awesome. And then I paddled back out straight after that, and about half an hour, 40 minutes later, a bigger one came through, and I just gave it a crack, and I had like one of the worst beat downs I've ever had.
Really?
Yeah. I think at because we had that day at Jaws, and then we had the day at Mavs. Like a couple of days later, I think I had the wipeout of the day on both sessions.
And you remember that as well, I'm sure.
Yeah. By that time the wind had come up a bit, and I thought, yes, if I make this wave, it's going to be the wave of my life, because I had a huge wall and it was really big. And put my head down, and as I stood up, some wind got under my board, and I lifted out the water, airdropped, and landed sideways. And I landed it, but my foot shifted and landed on the rail instead of over the stringer, so it sent my board into like a cutback, off balance, and I rode, and the lip landed on the back of my board. And I was like, oh, this is about to get really, really bad, because the wave was huge. I could just see the lip coming, and it broke behind me. I just pulled my limbs in to to just keep my joints safe, because your arms can get ripped out. Pulled my limbs in. I just started counting. I just thought, okay, count to 20, because like 20 seconds is a very, very long hold down in surfing. And I thought, okay, this is gonna be very long. Let's aim high. And I started counting, and it was just very, very violent. And it pushed me so deep. I thought my eardrums were actually going to pop. There was so much pressure on my ears, were clicking. And then I pulled 2 canisters on my vest because I just wasn't coming up. And then I got to 15 seconds, and eventually I came up, which it doesn't sound like long, but when you're getting smoked by a big wave, it feels like forever. And then I came up just before the next one, got one breath, and then got sent down. Like the next one was maybe even bigger. That exploded over me, sent me really deep again. And then I pulled the 3rd canister, so I was like a bubble inflated with air. And then I eventually came up after that. And then the 3rd wave just washed me like all the way to the inside. And then a guy came and picked me up with the ski. And then I was pretty much done. I mean, I felt really good after that. I felt like, sure, there was a heavy beat down. I felt like really good. I didn't feel panicked at all, you know?
Yeah, you had to kind of pay your dues, eh? Surfing Jaws. That was kind of it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not, you're always wondering when you look into the danger zone, you wonder if you like are going to survive that, you know, if you have to get caught there. And so it's quite nice to actually go through that whole experience and know that you can do it. But I was very happy that I didn't get hurt, because the lips, like any time you fall near the lip, it can be quite dangerous. And yeah, fortunately, everything was all good.
Thanks for describing that. It's an insight into the intricacies of what we don't get to see, and it's so cool to hear that narrative and what it actually feels like. At that point, you kind of realize, that big wave, why waves were created for us. Eh? I'm sure it we're so thankful for why waves were created, for man to ride.
Oh my word, totally. It's like you really feel, there's a movie called In God's Hands, and it's like that's what it feels like when you leave the land and you go out into those waves, because so much of life you have a certain degree of control over your surroundings, but when you're out there in big waves, you have no control, because there's just so much energy out there, and you just feel like you're in God's hands. I love it. You kind of go into another zone of like total focus. You feel like you don't have control, but it's just an adventure, and just have so much awe for the power of these waves. Like that, you can't believe that wind, but thousands of kilometers away, have generated this much energy in the water to make these waves. Because when you see those waves exploding, it's like nothing you've ever seen.
Yeah, it's a spiritual thing, man. It's a spiritual thing.
It really is, yeah.
So that night, everything tastes better. The water tastes cleaner. The air smelled fresher. I'm sure you must have been tingling.
Oh my gosh! When you make it back to land, you just feel so alive, and you just feel it feels incredible. And I again came in over the rocks, which is very, very scary. Coming in is almost as scary as surfing the wave itself. But I managed to get like washed up the rocks really nicely and got out of there before the next one smoked me. And yeah, that evening I just had, also the best part is phoning home, shame out my wife. She didn't sleep at all that night, because back in South Africa, it was nighttime. She knew the waves were going to be really big. And I could see on WhatsApp she had checked in at like 2 a.m. She just didn't sleep like throughout the night. And just speaking to her and my dad in the morning, it's just really, really awesome.
Relief.
My mom. And yeah, that's one of the best parts actually, because they're always like, they phone and they're like, how was it? And then they're waiting to hear, firstly, that I'm still alive.
That's a good start.
That, yeah. And secondly, like, yeah, I'm like, oh, I got a bomb. And then it's just the best reporting home after all that,
Yeah. And then onto a plane back to LA and getting ready for Mavs.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why I booked the trip was I could see there was a second pulse behind it. It looked really good for Jaws, but then like as the Jaws swell approached, the second Jaws swell, it started to kind of downgrade and get a bit windy. So we still went out in the morning, and we surfed, but it wasn't great at all. It was like, it was a huge storm, but the track of it was kind of going quite far north of Hawaii, and was just heading straight to Mavericks. So yeah, we surfed Jaws, and then that evening I went to the airport. I flew over that swell, landed in San Francisco. So you get about maybe 3 to 4 hours sleep on the plane, and then arrived at the harbor at 7:30 in the morning, and it was the conditions were just pristine, like glassy. You don't often get that glassy with big waves. I caught the boat out, and I remember going out into the lineup and kind of like still semi waking up, and there were like massive waves. Like I didn't expect it to be that big. It was the same size as Jaws. There were like 40, 50-foot waves coming in. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, time to kick into gear. And as we came into the lineup, I just saw Kai Lenny way off the back peak, because Mavericks has got the slab, which all the energy focuses. And then when it's really big, it breaks further out than the slab and deeper. And just saw Kai was just sitting like 50 meters away from everyone, deeper and further out. And he was just dropped into this monster, like from way beyond the slab. And I was like, oh, wow. And paddling into the lineup, it was just clean conditions, and then these massive walls coming in. And it was seriously big and powerful. And there's something about Mavericks. The water's brown, and the water feels heavier there and more dense. There's a scary, like this other scary look about it. It's very, very different to Jaws.
Ominous. So, like in comparing the two waves, like how would you define the one against the other, just very quickly? I mean, you did describe it there for us, but like they're both sort of big wave spots, and there's a big difference in the watercolor.
Yeah, it's totally different. It's freezing cold, and for me, I actually like surfing in booties and a wetsuit, so I feel a little bit more at home. But it's just Jaws is a really big playing field. The waves coming in are massive, but it's a bigger area. Mavericks, all that energy focuses in on that slab, and it just, maybe the waves are not as big and powerful as Jaws, but when they focus on that slab, the explosions are going 50 foot in the air. It's like very violent. So there's a lot of energy converging on a much smaller area. And it's also a little bit less predictable out there at Mavs, because if you are outside the ledge, sometimes you can get quite a nice easy takeoff. But if you are too close to the slab, you can be paddling in, and the next thing, the whole bottom of the wave, it just falls away, and you're on like a Cork Bay Reef kind of slab, but the wave's 20, 30 foot, and there's no ways you can make it if you're too deep. Like the slab is just too heavy. So there's a lot of, it's very different to Jaws. But it's such an incredible wave. And this was like, I've surfed there twice before. And this was the first time that we were sitting further out than the ledge. And I kind of spotted that there was a zone where there were like nice kind of rolling waves a little bit further out. And went and sat out there, and my first wave was just like, just before my first wave, Peter Mull kind of paddled past right and sat like on that spot where the waves were, and I sat next to him, and this big wave came through, and I thought he was too far out, he wasn't going to catch it, so I kind of put my head down to go, and then as I was committed to the wave, I heard this shout, and he was going, and I like pulled back, and I left my board went over the falls. Luckily, I just didn't go over the falls. That would have been a terrible start to the day. But then after that, I got my bomb like right off the bat, like from the back all the way through the slab to the channel, and it was just like,
it was a beauty. It was a thing of beauty, man.
Yeah, I was so stoked, man. Because if you sit for too long, when the waves are big and you sit for too long, you get really scared. Like all the doubts start sinking in, and the fears, and to get a wave off the bat really helps with the session to like, okay, I can do this. Because everyone out there is scared, no matter who they are. And
for
it's
sure.
really, when you get like a good wave, you start believing that you can do it again, and it's really helps.
Twig paddled into a bomb, huh? I mean, that was a monster.
Yeah, I didn't actually see that live. I hadn't arrived yet, but that wave was humongous. Like, you can see when Twigs, he's been surfing that wave for many years. You can see he knows exactly the reef and the lineups. He's very sure of where he's sitting, and yeah, that was the wave of the day that he had, and it was just, guys were saying it's maybe the biggest wave ever paddled into at Mavericks. It was just unbelievable the way that he rode that wave.
Yeah, it was insane. It was insane.
And it was so cool surfing out there with another South African, like, because you feel a little bit lonely being so far away from home. And then it's really awesome to speak to Twig and hear the South African accent and bounce ideas off him and stuff like that out there in the lineup.
So the question I've got, did you watch the Pipe this weekend? Pipe Masters?
I managed to watch the replay. Yeah, it was insane.
It was good, eh? So why is it that, I mean, South Africans seem to have a big wave temperament. The question is like why do you think we don't seem to have big match temperament when it comes to closing out like an event, you know, on the tour?
I think South Africans are just, I think we raised more polite, and I don't know what it is. It's like when you're surfing with guys from Australia and the States, they almost feel there's something about it that feels like they have this entitlement, like they are almost more worthy to get the set wave, more worthy to win the heat, to win a world title. There's something about it. Like I remember when I was doing competition surfing a while ago, and a set would come through, and the South African would always be the last guy to get he would get the last wave in the set. Like it would always be the Brazilian, Australian, the American getting the first, second, and third wave of the set. You know, there was something like South Africans are, I think, by nature a lot more polite, and maybe there's something that they don't really believe that they deserve it as much. I don't know what it is, but I think in big wave surfing, we have in Cape Town, we've got incredible big waves, and it's more like when the waves are really big, if you want the wave, you can have it. You're not hustling. You're not paddling over somebody else to get the wave. And I think South Africans are really good at that, waiting for their big bombs. But in the lineup and in contests, it seems like they're a touch behind with contest strategy, or maybe just like having that ruthless mentality to do whatever it takes to get the waves in the heat and win that heat. It seems to be something lacking there.
Yeah, I was thinking about it last night as well, and I had exactly the same train of thought. I mean, I spoke to Ricky Basnett a couple of weeks ago, and you know, Ricky was also saying that when he was on tour, he used to hate the business end of it. You know, he just wanted to surf, and he just felt that the reason he didn't enjoy it was because it almost needed to be treated like a business, you know, and you've got to be businesslike, and you've got to be, as you've described it, ruthless, and you've got to, you know, it's all about you. It's all about your, you know, how the wave that you want, and you've got to assert your dominancy. And as you've said, you know, we raised completely differently, and we're more like, we always go, yes, Tani, ja, you know, respect, open the door, stand up when an older person comes in the room. And I suppose that's interwoven in our makeup, you know, as South Africans. So I agree with what you've just said, you know.
Yeah, there's something about that. Hey, it's very, very interesting. Yeah, we need to, I don't know, be a bit, I think to in contest surfing, you need to be ruthless, and maybe that's some South Africans are a little bit too polite in that.
Yeah, it's one of those catch-22s, because it's a good thing to be polite and a good person, I suppose.
Yeah, and yeah, we've got such good surfers, man. So I've been a judge for the Monster Combo event that the Zigzag is running. And the entries are just insane. Like the surfing it's just incredible, from the young up and coming guys, the guys like Davey Fonsale who've been doing the comps for a while already. Like, man turns, like, so good. But yeah, I just need to apply that in the contest.
Yeah, that's it. Well, who knows? Maybe we'll get there one day with a little bit more sort of psychological coaching. I think that's also, we don't have the sort of setup that they do in the States, and and in some of the first world countries, you know. So, but we never know. We keep hoping.
Maybe they need also maybe a few more guys on tour to kind of open the door. Because Geordie, he's the guy killing it, but he's very international. And maybe if someone like Matt McGillivray, who's seen more as like a local hero, can really do super well and open the door for more of the guys, then if they can have a little crew all traveling together and feed off each other, I think that would be insane.
Yeah, good suggestion, Matt. So if you guys are listening, man, we really appreciate you making time, Matt. We super stoked with like the geest that you've brought to South African surfing over the last few weeks. Super proud, and man, please give Matt Bromley a follow, show him some love. We're going to leave all the links to all of his cool content down below. Thanks very much, Matt. We'll keep following you, we'll support you, and thanks for coming on the Ferral Life podcast, dude.
Yeah, it's been epic. And all of the footage from my travels we're going to release. I'm working on a movie called Over the Edge, so hopefully I think it's going to be now around April. Everything's been delayed with COVID, and we're waiting to get one more like really like hero trip to add to the film. We've been working on it for like 2 years, and yeah, so we got sick stuff at Jaws and Nav, so I'm so amped to show everyone, and so that'll hopefully be coming out next year around April, May. And thank you. One of the best parts for me is all the support and stuff. I know I'm so privileged to be able to do this. Like, there's so many guys who are incredible surfers, but they just don't have the capacity to travel. And I just feel so blessed to be able to do it. And then when I like put something up, and then there's so much support from everyone back home, that's just like one of the best parts of it all. So yeah, I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt. So look out for it. Over the Edge film coming out with Matt Bromley, big wave surfer, proudly South African, stand up, really nice guy, takes time out to just chat to us. Matt, have a rad day, dude. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much. Cheers.
Take care.